Hi everyone. Today I'd like to talk to you about documentation at a job, CYA 101. Now, documentation at a job is normally an important thing to think about and a skill that you want to have. However, at this particular moment in time during the pandemic, it's actually even more important than normal to make sure that you are paying attention to the documentation that you are creating. And I'd like to make a note here that I'm not just talking about general, regular, technical documentation. I'm talking about documentation of your job. So, the first thing that you should know about jobs is there's somebody called HR, Human Resources. HR is there to protect the company, they aren't there to protect you. So, HR is potentially really valuable to you if you are running into problems that you can't handle yourself. You just have to remember what their goals are. And if you're going to go to them, make sure that your goals align with their goals. So, the goal of HR is to make sure that the company is protected, the company isn't going to get sued, and that they are following all of the laws that they are supposed to be following. So, HR is there for you, but you just have to understand that they aren't being paid by you, they're being paid by your company, and that when you are going to HR, it's for things that you can't solve yourself. So, for example, if you are having a minor disagreement with a coworker about microwaving tuna in the kitchen, sure, that's an annoyance, that's not great. But your first response shouldn't be, I'm going to go tell HR on you. Your first response should probably be talking to the coworker. If you've talked to the coworker and they've decided that it's their, I don't know, constitutional right to microwave tuna in the break room, then you want to think about the next step. Maybe the next step is talking to your boss, asking your boss how they would like you to handle it. Part of being a boss is making sure that everybody that works for you is, if not happy, content. So, HR is really after you've tried a lot of other revenues, or the issue that you're having is with your boss. If the issue you're having is with your boss, as in your boss is asking you to do things that are illegal, immoral, problematic, that's when you might want to think about going to their boss or HR. However, you don't want to just walk in one day and say, "Hey, HR, my boss is, I don't know, stealing money." You want to make sure that you have some actual proof and documentation for what you're talking about. So, documentation is something that you want to think about in terms of keeping track of everything that is happening if you are having a concern. You can do things like keep a journal. You could keep a journal of the days and times that your coworker is microwaving tuna in the break room. That will show that it's not a one off. They actually do it 4 days a week, twice a day. And then you could, for example, negotiate that perhaps instead of that often, they do it twice a week, once a day, or something like that. You can also do things like keep track of emails that have been sent. It is worth thinking about keeping track of emails that are sent to you so that you have a record of them, with the caveat that if you have any information that is proprietary to the company or company secrets, I would not recommend saving those because that can give you a separate set of issues. You can save, for example, screenshots of the email and blur out the secrets. The point that you're trying to do is you're trying to, for example, if somebody is harassing you at work, you're trying to gather the proof that they're harassing you during work hours using work communication methods. So if they are sending you frequent emails, you're keeping track of the emails that they are sending you so that when you are ready to talk to HR, you have some proof and documentation. It's not just somebody is sending me emails that I don't like. It's somebody is sending me emails that are inappropriate. Here's the emails that they've sent. Here is how often they've sent them. Here is how far back it's gone. Here's what I've tried to do to mitigate it myself. And now I am coming to talk to you. You want to be really careful that you don't get emotional. You stick to facts. Think about exactly what happened and the facts of the matter. Don't start getting really emotional about the whole thing. It makes it really hard for other people to be able to deal with that or help you. I completely understand that there are some people that tend to be a little bit more emotional and tend to react by crying to confrontation. However, when we're talking about keeping track of your documentation, it's important that you stick to the very dry, bare facts of this harassing email was sent. You don't necessarily need to include this harassing email was sent and it made me feel X. It's this email was sent, it was harassment, and then this email was sent and this was harassment. And so you want to make sure that you are sticking to the dry facts, bare bones of the matter, and let other people create conclusions based off of those facts. You are unlikely to get as much help if you come in and say things about how you feel. That might change at some point. However, for the bulk of companies, going in with facts is going to go better for you than going in with what you feel. Now, sometimes you're going to have to do follow ups. If you already have a semi contentious relationship with anybody at the job, whether that's a coworker, a boss, somebody in another department, this is where documentation can be helpful as well as follow ups. Things that you can do for follow ups is basically you're trying to create a trail to show what you've done. So, for example, if all of your correspondence is on email, save a copy of the emails, and then you can show when the emails were sent, what was discussed, the follow ups that you tried to do. So, let's say, for example, you have a boss and they are telling you that you have to work unpaid overtime. Now, in some places, this would be considered wage theft and is actually illegal. However, trying to fight with them about this is not necessarily going to get you what you want. And depending on the costs involved in the legal battle, it's going to have other issues. Now, there is also going to be, it has to be noted, some companies that are going to have problems. And if you are seen as a troublemaker, they will find ways to push you out. And that's just a reality of how the world works right now. It is still good to keep the documentation regardless, and figuring out if it's the kind of company that is retaliatory, then maybe it's time to look for another job, but it is still important to keep your documentation. Now, for your follow up phrases, let's say we have the boss that is trying to commit wage theft and get you to work unpaid overtime. If they send it to you in, say, an email or a text message, you can keep a log of that. You can create, say, a Word document or a spreadsheet or a database, whatever you're comfortable with, and keep a document that has the screenshots and proof of your emails and text messages. However, perhaps they're saying this to you on the phone. They are calling you on the phone, calling you on whatever, Zoom, FaceTime that you happen to use for the company. Then what you want to do is a follow-up email in writing. There's some magic that is having things in writing. And the way that you do that is if they've had a phone call with you where they said, for example, I want you to work an hour of unpaid overtime on Monday. You can follow that up with an email that says, as per our conversation on Sunday night, my understanding was that you want me to work an hour of unpaid overtime on Monday. Is this correct? Did I misunderstand? Please let me know if I'm missing anything, and treat it in more of a friendly, just wanted to check in and make sure that I understand your orders. And so that follow up of having it in writing shows that you're trying to reach out to them to make sure that you understand what's going on. If they respond and say, no, I didn't mean that, and then follow it up with a phone call, yeah, I meant it, ignore the email, then you have choices to make. You can either respond back to that email and say, as per the second phone call that you made where you said to ignore the email, I'm sorry, but I'm confused. Would you like me to pay attention to the coming in or not coming in? And having that in writing is one of the tricks that you can do to make sure that you have everything that you're being asked to do documented. Sort of follow up to this is if you are trying to work with somebody else, one of the things that you'll sometimes see in industry is if you are emailing somebody and they aren't responding to you or they aren't doing their portion of the project, you can also say, as a follow up, continue sending the emails on a not bad basis, but every couple of days, once a week, whatever, unless they're on vacation. And then if it turns into a problem, you can start CCing other people, maybe other people on the project, maybe their boss. I will give the caveat, be careful when CCing somebody's boss because that can sometimes go really badly. There's really nothing that can go badly if you use one of the as per our conversation, or my understanding from our phone conversation was there's really nothing that can really go too bad for doing that. But when you start getting into CCing other people, that can sometimes go a little worse. Now, the bonus that I would like to talk to you about is work from home. Because we are in the middle of a pandemic as of summer 2020, a lot of people are working from home, and they were people that were not necessarily working from home before at companies that isn't necessarily comfortable with their workers working from home. So, some of what you want to think about is if you have a company that wasn't particularly trusting of employees or wasn't particularly on board with working from home, some of the things that you can do to make your life a little bit easier is find ways to show that you are working and just as productive at home as you were in the office. Now, there are some companies that have this mentality about how if you're not in the office, you're not really working, and somehow meetings are productive all of the time. As workers, we might know that that's nonsense, but it is still important to show that whatever deliverables you have, you are still working. It's not like you are sitting at home playing Fortnite. So, some of the things that you can do is you can show that you are still getting your deliverables done on time. You can make sure that you are still emailing people back. You might not need to be as careful about the 9 to 5, depending on the company. Some companies are very much like, I want you to be on your email 9 to 5 and respond immediately. A lot of companies have started moving to chat options like Slack and Discord or Microsoft Teams. You can also do things like have slightly quicker responses. Sometimes that can be useful. You can also do something called FaceTime. Now, this is going to sound really silly, but I swear this actually works. Sometimes when you are working at a company, they kind of forget you're there. And showing up and quite literally just having them see your face is enough to have them remember that you're there. One of the ways that you can do this, so let's say you're in a meeting. You're in a meeting, it's a silly, useless meeting. One way you can show you're paying attention is at some point during the meeting, pick something at least semi-useful to say or a question to have to show that you are there and paying attention during the meeting. And this works in person as well as work from home. And it kind of gives everybody the illusion, if it's not true, or the truth that you are working and you are paying attention. Another thing that you can do is keep a list of accomplishments for your week. So you can remind people that you are getting things done and you are very valuable by keeping track of everything that you've done for the week. If you have 5 projects you're working on, then keep track of what you finished for those projects. If you are doing customer service, then keep track of how many help desk tickets you finished. Help them see how valuable you are and the work that you are doing. And this is really helpful so that you can see what you're doing and they can see what you're doing as well, so that the work from home becomes as successful as possible. Please let me know if you have any questions.